Hello, my name is Wade Avery. I am a student at UND, currently enrolled in the Computer Aided Measurements and Controls course. For this course, I completed a project. My project was on account creation. So I created an account creator program. Kind of some justifications behind this were today we have accounts for almost everything. Pretty much any web page that you can go to and interact with is going to have you sign up for an account of some kind, as well as your email accounts, work, home, school, social media accounts, etc. All require you to have this account. Typically, these accounts have three main components. They're going to have some basic user info. For example, sales sites like Amazon may store home, shipping address, billing address, credit card information, things like that. Social media, for example, may have your interests, things you like, things you'd like to do, hobbies, information about career, education, things like that. Beyond the basic user info, a lot of these accounts are going to have a username and a password in order to access the account. Along with these three main components, most sites also have some kind of mechanism to check to make sure that the person applying for the account is a human and not a program or a script or a bot, as sometimes these are collectively referred to as. For example, Amazon may have a sweepstakes that you register through your account. If a program wanted to improve their odds, they may write a program to sign up for as many accounts as they could and then enter the sweepstakes with these kind of fake or dummy accounts. And so Amazon uses a mechanism similar to CAPTCHA to make sure that this doesn't happen by verifying that all the accounts are tied to real humans. So for my project, I wanted to focus on two of the main three components, which were the username and the password. And then I also want to incorporate some kind of a human check to make sure that a bot couldn't, create an account on its own. And I really didn't want to use like a CAPTCHA. I feel that that mechanism is kind of hard. It can be very ambiguous. Whether are all the letters capitalized? Does capitalization matter? Letters that resort to size, for example, can be hard to determine if they're capitalized in a CAPTCHA because everything can be shown on different sizes. So it can be kind of tough, and even characters like lowercase l and 1 can be hard to distinguish. So I wanted to avoid any of those issues with my human check. So how I did this, I kind of already alluded to the fact that I wanted to use C++. For the username, I just want to check and make sure that the supplied username doesn't already exist. The password, we want to ensure it just simply meets length requirements. And for the human check, we're going to have the user identify a piece of fruit from a picture to prove that they are in fact a human. So the first piece of code, we just kind of welcome the user, let them know we'll be setting them up with an account, and then we ask them to supply a username for that account. We use the getLine function to do that, and then that's stored as a variable, and then we pass that variable to the username check function, which is actually going to be doing the check to make sure that this doesn't exist in our existing list. Now, initially, my plan was to just use arrays for this function. I have my array that contains a list of usernames. I would then compare each index in that array with the user's applied username to see if any of them are identical, and if so, I could let the user know that they need to enter a different username. And I had originally implemented it that way, just using arrays. However, I ran into an obstacle where at the end of this function, I wanted to add a non-redundant username to the list. However, this isn't supported by arrays in C++. You have to have a constant defined for the array size. You can't use a variable. My plan was to use a variable like int x and then increment that in my loop, or at the end of the loop when the user is deemed valid, and then add that username to the last index. However, you can't do this. So I had to resort to vectors. Vectors are a little bit more easy to manipulate in that sense. And so what I did as a result is I left my initial list in an array, and then I passed that array here into the vector. I'm using the size of that array as a basis for the size of my vector. Then I have a while loop that will use an if statement to search through that vector and see if any of the strings in that vector match the string that is the username. If it does, then it tells the person applying for an account that username is already taken and prompts them to enter a new one. If that username they supplied is not a duplicate, then their user is added to the list. You see that with the pushback call here, and then their username is added to the last spot in the list or in the vector. And then I have a simple for loop here that is just used to spit out the contents of the vector, so that once the user is accepted, we're able to see the complete list of users. After the user has been confirmed as valid, then we will then have the user supply their password. The only requirements here are that it's more than 3 and less than 15 characters. Again, we use a getLine function. We store that as a key variable and pass that into the password check function. Here we have the password check function, very simple function. It's just, again, using a simple while loop and if else statement. If the password length is valid, meets the requirements, then it is saved. If their password doesn't meet the requirements, they are prompted to enter in a new one. So once we have a valid username and password for the account, we just want to make sure that the user is a human. So again, we just have some text, some cout, just kind of explaining to the user what we're going to do, that we will show them a picture, then ask them a question. So we just simply load a fruit JPEG, and then ask the user which fruit is in which position. So for example, if they were answered what's in the middle left position, they would want to answer kiwi. In order to make it a little bit more simple, we require that the user supply their answers in a singular and lowercase fashion. So the way this is really accomplished is the two arrays are built in such a way that apple is in the top left, so the first index in the array match, and then in the top middle fruit is the banana, the second objects in the arrays match, and so on and so forth. So that if we have a position, the 0 index or the 1 index, they correspond in both arrays. And then we choose a random integer to decide which position we're going to use in the array. We have 0 to 9 as our range for a random number because we have 9 positions here. And when I was looking to generate a random number, several of the methods I didn't like because they didn't distribute the values evenly, or there was a set order that the numbers were generated. For example, it would generate 7, then it always generate 1, then always 3, and then 4, and so on. I was able to find this implementation of a random number generator on StackTrace, and was able to modify it for my needs, and this seemed to have a very even distribution through all the numbers, and there was no bias for like the lower values or anything like that I was able to see in my limited testing. So the first 4 lines in the while loop are just that random number generator generating an integer between 0 and 8. At that point, we use that number to ask what fruit was located in a specific position, and then we compare if the guess that the user supplies matches the name of the fruit or that index name in the fruit array. If they do match, then we create the count for the user. If they don't, then the user is given another opportunity to try and answer the question correctly. So at this point, we'll go ahead and do a quick demonstration here. You can see the code itself is not very long. You can see all the libraries that I've included. So if you saw, my name Wade is in the list already. If we try and use that, it won't allow us to, so then we can try another one. John again is in the user list, so that will be taken. If we use a user that is in the list, it's accepted, and then we see the complete list of users here. So now we need to choose a username. If we don't meet the length requirements, we will get errors that prompt us then to try again. If we meet the length requirements, the password is saved. So now we have our human check test here. Again, we're instructed that our answer should be lowercase and singular. So we have our image here. We're asked what's in the middle left of the image. We see it's banana. If we answer the wrong answer, we will get another chance. It gives us a new fruit to identify. So now we're doing the top left. If we answer correctly as apple, it lets us know that our account has then been created and then wishes us a good day. And that's my program.